Have you ever wondered why those fantastic beach shots that you've taken always leave you feeling a bit disappointed later when you see them at home? I might have a few tips that could help you. So, welcome to another chat on the beach. Well, at the moment I'm probably about halfway up a cliff rather than actually on the beach. But it was a good opportunity to have a chat with you about how I compose a photograph at the beach. Now, most of you, I'm sure, will have an idea of composition and the sorts of things that you look out for wherever you photograph these days. So these are just my own personal thoughts as they relate to beach photography. So everybody is sort of, brought up, trained, told that the rules of composition are absolutely paramount in order to obtain a good photograph. But I think most of us sort of quickly realise that maybe that isn't the case, that you don't have to follow rules of composition for a photograph to be really good. So just let me give you an example. The rule of thirds. Okay, as many of you will know, this is about dividing up your frame into 3 columns and 3 rows. So that you end up with 9 cells in like a grid. And the idea is that if you place the subject where these lines intersect, that is probably really good for your composition. But the more I think about it, the more I begin to realise that it's not so much about placing elements in a particular spot. It's much more than that. It's about balance within an image. And that is really important. It's really quite tricky to do sometimes at a beach where you have so many different competing elements that it's quite difficult to sort of single them out or arrange them in any particular composition that is pleasing to the eye. And I think that is the crux of it. It has to be pleasing to the eye. So I'm going to head off now down to the beach and see what compositions we can find, and I'll talk you through some of those. So here's my first tip. Don't do what I've just done and sit down on a wet rock. Definitely not a good idea. Okay, I also have a little question for you to do with zoom lenses. And I'll tell you the answer towards the end of the video. But somebody mentioned to me that the zoom lens is a modern invention. So I thought, right, I'll look it up and see if that is in fact the case. So the question is, in what year was the first zoom lens patented? That's right, in what year was the first zoom lens patented? So many times I visit the beach and I see people come down to the beach, out comes the phone camera, and they take a snap, and 9 times out of 10, they're taking a snap of the sea, which of course is pretty spectacular, but on a day like today it's flat, it's calm. But they don't really think about anything else. So I guess, and I've done it myself, when you get back home again, you look at those shots, you think, oh, that was a bit disappointing, I could have done more with that maybe. The other thing I find is that if you are including the horizon, that is between the sea and the sky, in your shot, please make it level. There's nothing more distracting in a photograph than seeing a wonky horizon dipping down to one side or the other. There are also 2 other factors to take into account. And one is camera height. What is the height of the camera when you frame up that shot? So many times people come down with their phone cameras or cameras on tripods. They fully extend the tripod so it's basically at sort of shoulder or even head height, and take their shots. And that's all well and good, but it's always worth exploring the shot when you lower the camera down, so maybe at waist height or even down at knee height. The other thing to consider is what aspect ratio are you shooting at. So in my camera, it defaults to a 3:2 aspect ratio, which is great. I can alter it to other aspect ratios. And very often for landscape photography, the most frequently used ratio is 16:9. But on a beach, that doesn't necessarily work too well. And very often we forget about a vertical composition, like a 9:16, or a 4:5, or even a square, 1:1. But there is one aspect ratio, which is not normally seen, that actually gives a fantastic impression of what the whole beach is like. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Oh my goodness, there's a crazy guy running around the beach. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Okay, look at this gorgeous rock here. Got this big slab leading to quite a statement rock in the middle there. A little island beyond, and then across the bay. So it's quite a nice shot here, I think. Always important to have a strong foreground on the beach, and with the tide being in a little bit, all the, I don't know, the stuff, the detritus, whatever you want to call it, all the rocks that would distract are completely covered. So anyway, I'm going to line up a few shots and we'll see what they look like. Okay, I've moved away from the slab a little bit this time. Unfortunately, the tide's going out, so I've got to be fairly quick with this composition. I'm hoping that the slab will provide a leading line to the main subject, which is this huge rock on top of the slab. And then beyond that, there's another rock appearing between an island and a cliff face. And beyond that, it is a view right across the bay. So fingers crossed, we should be okay. Let's give it a go. Yeah, I'm just going to try 1/125th of a second at f9.5. Just getting a bit of rocks I don't want creeping into the frame, so just need to adjust the frame. Oh, a lovely bit of light coming, look at that. Oh, it's really picking it out. Excellent, pleased with that. Be interested to see what it looks like. Okay, one of the most difficult shots you can try is in this sort of environment where we've got lots of rocks and boulders, the beautiful cormorants in the distance. They're drying out after their fishing this morning. But it's actually trying to make some sense of all the jumble here. And for me, I think it's really important to make sure that you have a very strong foreground. So what I've been able to do is to pick up this little bit of seaweed here, this rock, and these two main rocks. And I've focused on those rocks about at f9.5. I could possibly focus stack as well, so I can get a bit more sharpness in the photograph as you go out to the further rocks, and I'll try that in a minute. But I'm just waiting for a little bit of that sort of glowy light that we've experienced this morning, so that I can get a shot of that little glow onto the green seaweed we've got here and help the rocks just glimmer a little bit. So anyway, I'm going to take a shot in a minute and we'll see how that one turns out. Okay, what I see before me is a big wide expanse of sea, rocks, sand, big boulders in some cases. And sometimes when you want to sort of capture that wide expanse, it's very tempting to end up being at the top end of the beach and trying to cram everything into one shot. But what you could do is actually do a little panorama of probably 2 or 3, maybe 4 shots, I don't know, whatever it takes. But the key to it is in the cropping. And very often, if you crop a panorama like that to, say, 16 by 9, you get too much sky or too much sandy beach. There's sort of no balance in the overall shot. So my little secret, which actually is not really a secret, but the best aspect ratio for that sometimes is 2.4 by 1. Yep, 2.4 by 1. I mentioned earlier in the video about this additional aspect ratio, which is often ignored. But you try it. Do a little panorama and use 2.4 to 1. It might work for you. That's a tip. Okay, I think that's been a very successful morning. I hope you've been able to pick up 1 or 2 tips along the way. They're probably things that you know, but very often, time for coffee by the way, very often we forget about some of the little things that we do, especially if we are of an older variety like I am. So it's often a good idea to practice, and wow, it's great to get out there anyway, isn't it? Yeah, so the question was, when was the first zoom lens patented? And I bet a lot of you are thinking, I don't know, 1950? 1930s maybe? Well, I regret you're going to be wrong if that's what you thought. The first patent for a zoom lens is 1902. So, not such a modern approach to lens construction, is it? Oh, over 120 years. That's amazing. Okay, just to sort of summarize a little bit, I think for me and the beaches that I shoot at down in Cornwall in the UK, it's very important to shoot the elements rather than trying to get a whole expanse of a cove or a beach. It's almost impossible to do that. There are occasions when it can be done if there's a big sea stack or something like that that you can use as your main subject. But generally speaking, you've got to try and find a subject within all those elements, balance the elements of the frame together, ensure that there are no distractions around the edges, and basically see what you can come up with. At the end of the day, it's all about practicing. Don't forget that for every 200-300 shots, there might be an absolute banger in there somewhere. So keep practicing, and might be a good idea if you be so kind to leave some comments below about your best practice when you're at the beach taking photographs. So that's it for now. Thank you very much for watching, and see you again soon. Bye.